This is BreakmanX, and welcome to the game show on April 2nd, 2025. And Jack Burton is coming in hot. He's literally rad racering himself here. So he's not quite here yet, but he will be shortly. So, Maul, how's it going?
Hey, I am doing all right. It's a cool, cloudy day, and it sounds like you're having a bit of precipitation out there yourself.
Yeah, we had tornadoes last night. There were tornadoes in the area. They luckily didn't come close. I asked
something I don't miss from moving out there.
Yeah, it's not something nice. I asked AI. I was like, what are the chances of a tornado hitting our house tonight? And it said 10%. So I was like, okay, I could go to bed. 10%. Those are odds I could live with. And Logan, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great. I'm on a high after the Switch 2 Direct this morning.
That
was some cool stuff.
We are gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that shortly. I almost like the presentations more than I like the games. I just love participating in those. They're so much fun. And Darria, welcome back after your hiatus last week. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. And my drink of the night is a 0 sugar strawberries and cream Dr. Pepper.
Awesome.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's our sponsor for the week, so that's great.
I wish. Give us money.
Dr. Pepper money.
All right. And before we introduce our guest tonight, the game show is a celebration of video games and our collective interests mixed with a healthy dose of humor while bringing in our favorite people in the game and movie industries on as guests. And we've got a great one tonight. Johnny Grafx explores weird and underrated obscurities from the golden age of video games, and he's pretty okay at it. Check out his YouTube channel, where he has some really great videos on not only the PC Engine TurboGrafx 16, but also some of his favorites from other retro consoles and even some modern ones. Johnny is also a skilled voiceover professional, which I hope to learn more about tonight. And Johnny, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. You know, there's not as much to say about the voiceover world now as there used to be, so I might not have a lot to share with you on it, other than the fact that AI is kind of killing it.
That is so unfortunate. It doesn't do nearly as good of a job, though, at least in my opinion. Doesn't give you the...
Not yet, but it's getting pretty close. Some of the top tier stuff, we don't have to go into it, but it's bad. It's getting bad out there.
It's interesting. No, we'll dive into it when we get into that section of our outline.
Sure.
Sure.
We're actually already in it because Break, you asked what the chances of a tornado hitting your house last night was, and I answered it, and then it stole the show, and this is all AI now.
Yeah, I mean it's like the craze now. Everyone wants they're always at work. They're wanting me to learn about AI, so I've been AIing it. I'm actually not even here. This is AI. Like
probably
don't even need me anymore. I did some playing around with it. I asked it to watch a video of the game show and analyze the different hosts, and it actually gave a pretty not funny. It gave a pretty accurate rundown of the different hosts. My favorite was it said Darria was the voice of reason that consistently brings to the madness, and that Logan is more even keeled and balances out my extremism, and then Maul is willing to be blunt. That was what. So it's bizarre.
Wow,
it's bizarre. But let's go ahead and jump into the big news of the day. Switcheroo. There's a new Switch 2. Nintendo gave their YouTube presentation this morning, and told us all about the Switch, and then didn't tell us the price, but then later told us the price. So now we know everything, and the prices are something. I think that's something that people are talking about.
Yeah.
So what'd you think about the unveil? I guess Maul, we can start with you since Jack is still rad racing.
I've been watching for this for a bit. And I told you guys that it was coming pretty soon. With little leaks started coming out at different cons. CES, there were some accessories and stuff. I'm pretty excited for it, but I do kind of go back and forth where I'm like, I'm very excited, and then part of me is just like, you don't need this right now. You don't need a launch system. like,
see that today.
Yeah, because I mean, like, well, I mean, it helps that it's launching with Mario Kart, though. I mean, a lot of times I talk myself out of systems on launch days because there's those gotta have it first guys who go out and, like, pay the scalpers too much money. They gotta get in it right. They're in line, they're fighting over it. But I remember, like, the PS2 coming out, people were paying $2,000 for that thing to get it first, only to go home and play like Madden 2001 and
hey, Tekken Tag Tournament was good, but not $2,000.
Yeah, it was pretty good, but I wouldn't pay $2,000 worth to play that. So
I would not.
So usually the launch game library is not anything to write home about, but a Mario Kart, it's pretty dope. It's great.
Yeah.
So but
90
I am excited for it, though, but it's just like, will I be a day one adopter? I don't know.
I'm pretty excited for it too, and I do want to remind our listeners and viewers out there, if you want to participate in the show, you can just type in right next to the YouTube or the Twitch or the Facebook or wherever you're watching, or go to BreakmanX.com and click on Discord and talk to us there. Either way, and Logan will be keeping us up to date. Johnny, what are your thoughts on the Switch 2? What did you think of the presentation this morning?
I think some of the games look great. That Donkey Kong game looks great. That reminded me a lot of Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Do you guys remember that game?
Yeah.
On the PS2?
Yeah.
It was very Hulk Ultimate Destruction coded, I guess. It was, very much felt like that is inside it somewhere, and that's cool to me. That's a game that I would definitely play. Open world Mario Kart, I'm not sure if I want that. I'm not sure if I want open world. I just want Mario Kart. Like 8 is perfect. Like, just, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little old school, but
no, I'm with you. I'm not a big open world game fan in general. I like, maybe I'm old school. I like to be directed, like in the way I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, like especially in a racing game. I mean, I don't want to drive to the race. I just want to race.
That's like the boring part that we skip, right?
Right. It's like you've taken the menu and you've turned it in. You've gotten rid of the menu where I select the level, and you've just made it a game. And I mean that can be cool on paper, and I'm sure some people will like it, but just for me, that doesn't speak to me very much. I'd be more likely to I'm more curious about how well Mario Kart 8 is going to run on the Switch 2. If if maybe we're going to get a little resolution boost out of that, I'm more excited for that than I am for an open world Mario Kart game, frankly.
We'll see. I always say that the proof's in the pudding. We'll see how it turns out.
Yeah,
I'm always down for them to try to shake up the formulas a little bit. It does remind me a bit of like career mode on like the Gran Turismos. You're collecting vehicles and going to races, and we got a little bit of stuff like that, and that was fine. So I don't know. Nintendo's, they've got crazy ideas, so we'll see what they've cooked up this time.
Paradise did it. That one kind of works. I kind of like the way that one did it. It was like, it wasn't a big world, and it was like races were densely packed in, and it was like, for some reason that one kind of worked. So I don't know if they approach it in a dense, efficient way, then I could be about it.
Yeah, I mean, if I got to run 20 minutes across empty grass fields to get to the next track, that will suck.
Yes, but, like the crew. Like that's why like I couldn't get into the crew, because it was like 90% of the game is just getting to a part of the game, and I was like, I mean, oh man, what if it's like launch day No Man's Sky, and we're just going across like just procedurally generated nothingness.
It didn't look procedurally generated in the trailers.
No.
No.
It looked like the real deal.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of a big fan of open world driving games. Like, one of my favorite games is Forza Horizon 5, which actually is a pretty large map and just endless driving. Like, I love that exploration aspect. But the world isn't procedural, it's handcrafted, so there's lots of interesting things to find.
Yeah.
Okay. But I do think that this is probably going to be a few open worlds as opposed to just one massive map that maybe like fits a few themes. That's kind of the vibe I got from the trailer anyway. I don't know if they've confirmed that. But I think that might work. Kind of like what they did for like Lego 2K Drive, where they've got like a few different themed worlds that kind of separate out the races, and it's a lot quicker to go between the courses. That's kind of what my guess is what they're going to be doing.
I didn't play that one. Is that like how Crash Team Racing did it, where it was like different hub areas, but they're sort of connected? Is that kind of what you mean?
No, there is actually like separate worlds. You have to access a menu to switch between them in 2K Drive. I haven't actually played Crash Team Racing though. That sounds pretty cool.
It's fun.
It is cool.
Yeah, like really, I don't know. There could be like it could all just be one thing, and they have like separated biomes, but I feel like it makes more, especially with like having to drive between the races. For like a Grand Prix, you have to drive between each course. I think it makes sense to have a smaller world. Otherwise, like you don't want to stall a Grand Prix for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, and want to bring some attention. You might have heard the Halo music coming in, but that's just a signal that Jack Burton has joined the party. Jack, how's it going?
Hey, guy. I'm doing great. Are you guys talking Switch 2? Because I kind of want to talk about Switch 2 for a little bit.
We're switching it up with Switch 2. Daria was just about to give us her thoughts. Daria, what'd you think?
That's the voice of reason, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I thought was interesting was the GameCube announcement, like with the catalog.
Yeah.
And I
The
love
controller.
GameCube, so I like that they're giving it a resolution bump and that it's going to be available.
So that's what
okay.
I'm interested to kind of like look at and explore.
Yeah.
And there was a little
I'm
game
so
that
hyped for
Logan
F-Zero GX.
slightly likes.
That is probably the thing I freaked out about the most. F-Zero
F-Zero
GX
GX.
being playable on the Switch 2. Like that in a nice high resolution at hopefully 120 FPS if they do that.
That would be fantastic.
gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be tight. There's just
That
something,
game rules.
It does. There's
I
just
love that
something
game.
about getting a new Nintendo system. I mean, going back to the NES, SNES, it's a special experience. And the Switch 2, like, of the things they announced, like, if I'm going by my logical brain, I'm like, okay, Mario Kart. Right? But if I'm going by my emotional brain, I'm like, oh my god, GameCube, I get to play that again. And I'm like, just the fact that there's a new Nintendo system and I want to feel what the controllers feel like. I want to know if like the Pro controller feels any different. There's just so much excitement that I get for just new systems. So I do think I'm going to
control.
The mouse control is interesting. I want to see. They better put Mario Paint on there because I want to click those flies. I don't know if you guys ever played the Mario Paint.
I've never heard of that one before.
Clicking the fly game. But it was.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Yeah, they got to get that on there. But no, I probably will be pre-ordering on Friday. Big surprise, I'm sure, for everybody. But I was doing the Maul dance as he was talking before about going back and forth between do I really need it? But we do play Mario Kart all the time. The kids are going to want to play the new Mario Kart. And I'm excited to try out the old Switch games. Hopefully the tax on that, on getting the upgrade for the old Switch games, that was a little surprising, isn't too much. But I'm excited to see, I'd like to play Metroid Prime, the remake in 120 frames a second, or, see how that looks upscaled. And I want to play Metroid Prime 4 when it comes out, in the best quality and all that. So.
The real question is, Brick, are you going to replay Final Fantasy VII?
You had to ask, huh? If I had time, I would. I just don't. If I had not have graduated college yet, I would definitely play it again. But I just don't have time anymore to replay games that are of that length. But I do like that it's on the Switch. But now that Jack's joined the party here, Jack, what are your thoughts on the second Switch?
Oh man. I don't want to repeat anything that anybody else already said, but the thought of
We'll yell
Mario
if you
Kart
do.
mixed with Burnout Paradise makes me very, very excited. The price point for the game, maybe not so much, but I mean, I think I kind of got on just as you guys were talking about it, Logan. I think from everything that I was reading online, it is like a full, true open world where you're gonna like just go from one thing to the next, but you will also have the ability to just do races unto themselves, and you don't have to do the racing back and forth between circuits and things like that. So that's pretty cool. I mean,
It is pretty cool.
The GameCube retro console stuff seems awesome.
I want that controller.
You know, the upgrades, the upgrades for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom look awesome. I mean, just watching it actually run at a
finally
smooth frame
someone
rate
else that
was
thinks
awesome.
it's cool. Because everyone, like, I looked at Blue Sky and everyone's like, "Oh, great, GPS for Zelda. That's amazing."
I think the part that kind of disappoints me is just the pack. You know, I get it, like the Mario Kart Jamboree stuff, like it's actual additional content, additional mini games.
Nintendo
Same for
Connect.
the Kirby upgrade, but but like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, those are just, you know, it's texture packs, it's HD upgrades, it's a smoother frame rate.
Yeah,
I'm a little disappointed we're gonna have to pay extra for that, but at the same time, I'm broken just like you are, and so I'm going to buy it because
broken men. We're broken men. No,
Did
I
they
did.
say how much those upgrades are going to be?
They did not. At least
Not yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
they haven't said how much the upgrades are going to be. And I did. The games being $80 sucks. I did do and it just sucks the way that this is the reality in general. But I did look up the old inflation calculator, and I did look at, you know, GameCube era games being $50, and with inflation, they would be 91 today, which is absolutely nuts. With how
And they were
far the
arguably
dollar.
underpriced back then as well.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about it.
So games are actually going to be cheaper than they were in the GameCube era, and the Switch 2 itself is about what the GameCube would be with inflation as well. It's a little bit more, I think, but not much.
And it costs about the same as, you know,
Yeah,
an Xbox Series or a PlayStation. Actually, slightly less than either of those were brand new.
I say, in the corner of my eye, I see someone talking about the bundle. I am getting the bundle because Mario Kart, you get $30 off, and we're gonna want Mario Kart.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
But what do you
lest we all forget Project $10.
what's Project $10?
Heard this.
Remember in the Xbox 360 days where like EA was literally selling like Madden and NCAA football and games like that with like an online code packed into the case.
The pass, like
and
the
so
online
once the
pass
first
or
person
whatever.
that bought it, so the first person that bought it got online play, and if they sold it to GameStop or wherever, basically the person that got it after them had to pay an additional $10 just to get online play.
I remember those days.
Dark
That
days.
was just the beginning. We didn't know what we were getting into.
No,
It's gotten so much worse.
And honestly, like if I pay $80 and then the game, like I don't have to buy download, like, well, I'm probably gonna have to buy DLC, but if I don't have to buy a bunch of freemium crap, I'd prefer the $80 over freemium crap.
But you know what they're going to do is they're just going to do both.
Yeah, just give me both. It's like $80, and then also
true.
like, you know, Break, you really don't have time to play this game, so you know, here's some levels for your old manness.
Yep.
So, where is
Also,
the TurboGrafx
Fortnite.
16
Here's Fortnite, please.
on the classic? Oh yeah, Fortnite, right? Yeah. Where the TurboGrafx 16 stuff on the classic? I mean, they had it on the Wii.
They nailed it with that virtual console back in the day. Like
They
that
did.
was the format right there. They should have just kept that going and kept building. I don't know why they got rid of that and then they started over with this whole other thing. I guess because they can charge monthly for it now, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's.
Which
I
is-
think
yeah,
you're
probably.
right. I think it's a subscription thing. It'd be cool. I would definitely buy the Turbo controller.
That's how a lot of people played
Nintendo.
those games. Like a lot of people,
Oh, yeah.
I've gotten several comments on some of my videos, like dozens of comments of people saying, you know, I didn't know about these games until I played them on the Wii. I was just, you know, messing around on the Wii's storefront, or was it the Wii U? One of those two.
Wii, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
it
the
was
Wii
probably
U
the
had
Wii.
them too. But
Yeah, because you could turn the controller sideways, and it was actually pretty similar to a turbo pad at that point.
yeah.
Just without the switches. And so it was cool, man. That was neat. I was happy to see that. And there was, you know, a lot of games on it. It wasn't just that. It was, you know, there was all kinds of classic stuff on there.
Yeah, no, I never had been able to acquire Lord of Thunder, and the Wii was the
yeah.
first way I played that. And I mean, I guess I'd played it on emulation, but playing it on, you know, like an actual TV, with that rockin' soundtrack is something else.
It is an
so,
experience. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. Sometimes you just want to like rock out while you're playing the game.
The music's incredible. I mean, it's awesome. I mean, you will like you'll just 20 minutes will go by and you'll realize you have like sweat on your forehead for no reason.
Yeah. Such a good game. Well, we should get into some other stuff, but before we do, is there any more Switch 2 stuff anyone would like to say? And then Logan, I'll have you hit up the comments because it looks like there's quite a few.
The Donkey Kong game looks awesome. That looks like a lot of fun.
It's nice to see Donkey Kong pre-rare too.
That looks pretty awesome.
I know I'm in the minority here, and I accept that, but I've never really got into the Donkey Kong Country games, the Super Nintendo ones. I know like everyone loves them, and I probably just need to replay them, to be honest with you.
Just hot take after hot take. This guy.
It's not on purpose. I'm not trying to be an edge lord. Okay, I don't have any eyeliner on. I promise. Or do I? But
no, well,
I was gonna make a joke about current events, and you might know what I was gonna say, but I'm not going to.
JD Vance joke.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
No, I'm excited to see Donkey Kong though, just because like I thought the game looks great, but also just like so often lately Nintendo, and you still get some of this in these launch titles. There's a lot of repackaging of previous generations games. So like when you look for Donkey Kong on the current Switch generation, you look back and say, oh, this was released Wii U, whatever. It's been quite a while since like a really big mainline Donkey Kong game has been released for their mainline system. So it's cool to see it come back.
It's like that Tropic Freeze one or whatever. That was the last one, right? On the Wii U, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Or Tundra or something. Had a T word in it.
Yeah, and all of the companies do that. They've got like an IP, they'll make like a big hit, and then just like rather than put on a virtual console or a more affordable version, just little tweaks, and let's release it again and get your $50 again or 80 as it were. So good to see something new and fresh come out there. I don't know. Like for me, a lot of the features I'm a little deaf to, and some of them aren't like what I need. I just need solid games, and we'll kind of see how that library keeps growing over time. Break, you can tell me all about it when you get your launch one.
I will
see if you can convince me to get one.
I will. You know how I don't know. I probably won't get the PS6 and the Xbox. What are they going to call it? I don't know.
Something horrible.
They always have the worst names. So
honestly, I do not know if you'll see another Xbox at this point either.
Well, they say they're going to make more hardware, but it's basically become.
They've said a lot of things over the past couple of years. Half of it isn't true.
That is true. That is true.
We'll see.
It's crazy. I mean, I was expecting to see Master Chief Collection on the Switch today, which is crazy to me.
That would make sense.
Microsoft has basically become Sega Plus. Because they're still making hardware, but they're going to be putting their games, on other systems, and it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. If you would have told me back when we started the show in 2002, when everyone was telling me that Microsoft was going to buy Nintendo, that someday we'd see Halo on a Nintendo system, I don't even think even I would have believed you. And I was at that time maybe a bit of a Nintendo fanboy. I don't know, Jack. What do you think?
Hey, I'm not going to say no.
You've been wanting to for years. All right. Well, that's the Switch 2. Logan, do you want to catch us up on the chat?
Yeah, there's been a ton of chat activity,
and that's
here.
great. We love it. Keep writing, folks.
Let's see here. We'll start all the way at the top here. I'll hit some of the highlights.
Good.
Better says, would have been funnier if you did a fake out stream yesterday. Yeah, it was April Fool's. That would have been.
I should have done it. That'd have been hilarious.
Like a 10-hour.
The hosts would have been very surprised.
Yeah. Maximus Prime says, "Never tell me the odds." I think that's in reference to the tornado thing earlier.
Oh yeah.
Fair.
Let's see here.
Good evening, Game Closet. I saw that one.
Oh, we got a question for Johnny Grafx from Fenris. Okay, time to get this out of the way for Johnny Grafx. How many PCE/TG16 consoles you got in the collection?
Not a lot. Not as many as you might think. Unfortunately, there's still a few that I'd like to end up with. But right now, I've got my childhood TurboGrafx that's actually recently been upgraded and recapped and worked on a little bit, and nice. And a spare TurboGrafx that has not been worked on, and I'm not sure what awaits me in there because I haven't messed with it in years. And the Analog Duo, which is really that's become more or less my primary way to play those games. I mean, that's kind of the game changer right there, especially now that it's been updated and fixed up. The Analog Duo is nice. Awesome. And I have this little ding dong right here. That
I saw your video on that. Not so good.
Not so good. Swing and a miss, at least for now. We'll see what happens. But that's all I've got at the moment. That's I'd really like to get one of those shuttles. I don't know if you guys know what those are, but there's it looks like a UFO. It looks like it came from the moon or something, and it's cool. And I don't know if you can attach a CD attachment to it or not. But anyway, I just think it looks cool. That's one I'd like to have just for shelf candy, if nothing else.
Do you have a Super Grafx? It's actually later in the show, but that's where
I don't. Unfortunately, that thing is so expensive and hard to find. I've only seen a couple out in the wild, and they were like, it was well over $400 that they're asking. I think it was recapped games and stuff. Yeah, and it only runs now. The Aldines game or Aldi's or however you say that, Aldines. There's a shooter on that system that's amazing. I have played that. So that would almost be worth getting, a whole console for, but yeah, not quite. I'm not super motivated, honestly, to get the Super.
I mean, but it's still less than the Switch too, so maybe
yeah.
And why not have some Super Graphics on the Switch too, Nintendo? I mean, if you can do the GameCube, surely. And why stop there? PCFX.
Yeah, get Team Innocent on that thing, dude.
I don't think Nintendo would go for a lot of that content.
But sometimes you never know.
Yeah. Logan, any more chats you want to bring?
Oh yeah, there's plenty. Let's see here.
That's good. Keep them coming.
Yes. From Fenris again. Coworker was having an existential crisis over a $90 Mario Kart. But personally, my body is ready for GameCube on an NSO. No more $300 discs that aren't even guaranteed to work anymore. Yeah, GameCube is huge.
I love the GameCube. I guess they're not. I'll put an old episode up so you can hear me wax poetic about the GameCube. I love the GameCube.
Yeah,
it's a neat system.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got a couple from Game Closet. Switch 2 equals yawn. I think I've become jaded due to the fact of this current generation being such a blowout. I can see some people being not impressed because it is probably the closest new console in similarity wise to the previous one that Nintendo has come out with. But I also think it's kind of exactly what they needed because the Switch did have some things. For me, honestly, my favorite new feature might just be the increased size of the Joy-Cons, the bigger buttons, because the old ones just hurt my fingers. I'm still ready for better ones.
All I wanted was a more powerful Switch. And that's usually I love all the fancy things that Nintendo's doing. Although I wasn't a Waggle fan, but I love that they try new things. I love their creativity. But this time the Switch was just awesome. And I just want Nintendo games that look a little bit more current.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is the least whimsical console Nintendo's ever made. Yeah. Right? It is. I mean, if you think about going from the Super Nintendo to the N64, and then from that to the GameCube, and then from that to the Wii, these are all wildly different machines. And then the Wii U is, kind of iterative on the Wii, but also had its own unique personality to it. And then the Switch from that, of course. And so going from the Switch to the Switch 2 is, it's what everybody wants, so I guess it's fine. It's what I would want from them. But at the same time, I miss, being, surprised by some wild machine that everybody kind of hates for, a month, and then everyone comes around to it like Nintendo used to do, I think that may be over. I think that may be gone.
That was E3, we were talking about that. I can't remember what show Maul was mentioning that every time Nintendo would show something, everyone would be like, oh, that's the end of Nintendo. They're done. No more Nintendo.
Right, that's even being said this time around. Honestly.
They were saying
if this fails, Nintendo has nothing else to fall back on.
I remember that with the GameCube.
Literally a headline.
Everyone was like, "Oh, Nintendo's done. Then Microsoft is going to buy them, and their Mario is going to be on Xbox tomorrow, and all that." And every single gen has been the same thing. Even when the Wii was printing money, they're like, "Oh, it's so far behind. Technologically, the bottom's going to fall out." It's just always anti-Nintendo.
And Nintendo just keeps on winning, like in their own ways. You know, they keep on winning, even if they're not like directly competing with PlayStation, and they're kind of doing their own thing over here. They're successful.
Yep.
They've only had one console that was like, I guess the GameCube was like a little disappointing, I guess, on the, you know, monetarily speaking.
It was definitely the third of the three majors in that generation,
it's still
sales wise, but
it's still a widely loved console. Still has game. You know, like we're just talking about, you know, that F-Zero game. Yeah, it's amazing. It's still great. You know, people love it.
It wasn't that far behind the Xbox. It was pretty close.
No, actually, I read it's arguably more powerful.
Yeah,
that F-Zero game is still tough as nails too.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah. Okay. Exciting. I've got one more little section of chat I'm going to read here, and then I think we're going to move on for the time being. So we've got a take from Fenris. I hate the new DK design. I'm sorry, but it looks so ugly. And then Storm Eagle says, the new DK design feels like a mix of old DK and movie design. I don't know, it may be me.
No, so, I think you're correct.
Yeah.
That's what they're going for, yeah.
So I originally didn't like it when I saw it like in the teaser, like quick for Mario Kart, but I actually like it a lot better having seen the trailer for the new DK game, like seeing all the detail, like with all the fur and everything. And I don't know, the proportions, they're working for me. I don't know. I like the simplicity.
It is odd, but I agree. I think it's working. Whatever it is, it's fine. I'm fine with it. I'm mostly interested in that gameplay though. It just looks really fun.
It does. I went through a range of emotions with that. I saw Donkey Kong, and again, I wasn't a huge Donkey Kong Country fan. I need to replay him. I'm sorry. I know everyone here likes it, and I apologize, but maybe it was the time of life in which I played it. I don't know. But anyway, I saw it, and I was like, Donkey Kong. And I love the original Donkey Kong. I love Donkey Kong Country Jr. whatever. But anyway, I go and I see the gameplay. The as Johnny was talking about with the Hulk style gameplay from that old PS2 era game. I was like, this actually looks really fun, and I got pretty excited for it actually. Surprisingly, as far as the new content, I mean, Mario Kart is going to be Mario Kart, and I'm still not sure about the open world stuff we mentioned earlier, but. The Donkey Kong game was probably the most impressive like new thing they showed, except for maybe some of the new stuff on Kirby and Forgotten World, and I don't know if you can count that since it's just basically more levels. But I was impressed by it.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. I think they're going to make a lot of people happy with it, you know, software wise, and that's always been Nintendo's bread and butter. No matter what the system was, no matter what the controller was, no matter what the price point was. Yep. You know, they have Pokemon, they have Mario, they have Kirby. You're gonna show up, you know, if you like those games.
It's the ticket to entry to Nintendo IP. I mean, let's face it, that's what it is. And now that they've moved on to the Switch 2, the one thing I was kind of happy about of all the negative financial news of the day was the fact that Switch 1 controllers, almost all of them, I think all of them actually will work on it. The Joy-Cons will work, the Pro Controller will work, the Switch Online, the NES, SNES, and all those controllers will work with the Switch 2. So when we get Mario Kart, I thought that was pretty cool. So when we get Mario Kart, we won't have to get all new controllers for all the kids to play together. So
that's
I'm
super
so happy
nice.
to be able to use my Pro Controller over on the new one, because the old one works fine. The new one has like extra programmable buttons and stuff. But like,
does it have a better D-pad? I've never liked the mushy of the. I was almost like mushy. Yeah, because that D-pad isn't great.
I never really struggled with mine, although I don't really often use it at all. Really.
I'm picky with D-pads.
Did you notice they're actually putting the little paddles on the back of the controller, those G buttons?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest new addition.
Those are the accidentally I pushed it buttons for me. Like, I don't need 3,000 buttons on my controller. Like, I don't need a button like everywhere. But hey,
I think we hit a point of diminishing returns with button amount at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe Shiggy will, I don't know, do something interesting with it. Who knows? It'll be a back scratch, something.
Yeah, something.
One step closer to the Steel Battalion remake on Switch.
Oh God!
You know what? That
game is cursed.
It was Jack and I got to play it. You maybe have too. We got to actually play it with the full controller setup at this place in Kansas City, And I did not think the game was very good, to be honest with you. The controller was fabulous, though. Like just the setup process, I'll never forget. It felt like you're in a Gundam or something. You're like sitting in the thing and you're flipping all these switches and like getting everything launched, and that was really cool. And then the game started, and I was like,
You know, it's just that immersion. It's like getting a steering wheel for your Xbox or whatever with like the the gas pedals and just like turning off the lights and just pretending, ooh, I'm in a car. Yeah, that's all you need.
Let's go. And speaking of let's go, let's move on to the next topic of the show. So, Johnny,
Yes.
what was the inspiration and beginning for your channel, Johnny Grafx?
Well, I guess like the current era of it, like if you watch any of the videos from the last couple of years, that's like the current era. That's the era it's more likely like the style that I'm going to stick with going forward. And that came about because I was really just tired of not doing that. I was tired of doing what I originally started the channel to do, which is to more or less be like a portfolio. So I could make reviews of like, Horizon Zero Dawn or, a couple other games that I did, modern games. Because the idea was back in, I don't know, when I first initially started that, I want to say 2014 or something like that. I don't know. But I wanted to get a job at like IGN or GameSpot or one of these bigger places and review games. And that was kind of like the ultimate goal. So I didn't really know how to get started with that. So I just said, well, I'm going to do some of that style and put them on YouTube, and then I'll have like something to show them. And and I did that for a while, and I kept my eyes on job openings, and I applied, and I sent the links, and I just never really got anywhere with it with any of those places. I did end up writing and doing reviews for a different outlet for a while, but that was kind of its own thing. So ultimately, the channel, I would get interested in it for a while, and I'd post a couple things, and then I would let it go for like 6 months and not do anything with it, or maybe even longer. And eventually, a couple of years ago or so, I was like, I got this channel. I know how to make videos. I know how to write, and there's no point in competing with like GameSpot or IGN's reviews because they come up sometimes before the game's even out. I'm a nobody. I'm not going to get codes. I'm not going to be able to compete with that. So there's no real point in doing that if I'm just trying to grow a channel, right? The only reason to do that would be just for fun. And so I said, okay, well, I'll just do it for fun. So if I'm doing it for fun, I'm just going to talk about games that I want to talk about then. I'm not going to necessarily review Resident Evil 3 Remake or whatever. I mean, if I want to, I will. But I'd rather talk about like Bonk's Adventure or, some random Sega Genesis game or maybe a series of remakes of retro games on the PS4 or PS5. And I ended up making a half dozen or so videos on like modern iterations of old games. That's kind of like, that's a fun topic for me. That's I'll probably do that again at some point soon. And so I just kind of found a different groove when I just decided to do it for fun. And then, the TurboGrafx stuff kind of ended up pouring out of me just more naturally because that's just a system. I mean, the scripts write themselves. I don't need to do much research at all because I've just been such a fan of that platform for so long. So the rename and the rebrand of Johnny Grafx kind of came out of that, and it just kind of went from there. And here we are. I mean, I'm still kind of iterating on it and refining it as I go, but I think for the most part, the form it is now is the form it's going to stay, and it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. Well, I'm enjoying it too. I love that it started in kind of wanting to be a games journalist. My big goal growing up was to write for like any of the magazines that I read. And I remember I used to write to Dan Shu at EGM. I used to write him emails, and he would actually respond, and he'd be super nice and be like, yeah, if you want to do what we do this, and then we don't get paid anything, but I hope you like video games. Is basically what he would say. But Dan, that was so awesome. So yeah, that was totally my dream too. So I think that's a cool place for it to.
I think it was a lot of ours, especially when those of us that grew up with the magazines, right? Like GamePro was my big magazine I liked, because their rating system was like they would rate the graphics and the sound and the gameplay and like a few different categories like separately. They would have their own scores, and then there'd be like an overall score, which wasn't an average necessarily, but it was like sort of a culmination of everything. And that I just loved that review system. That was so cool. I loved reading those. I read them all. Even if it was a game I didn't really care about, I would read the reviews, almost all of them in every issue, because it was just fun to sort of digest them in that way. So
I still say fun factor because of that.
Fun factor, yeah. Yep.
It's like I love the pictures there. Yeah. Such a great time in gaming. So Jack, your turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so obviously it seems like you're a pretty big fan of the TurboGrafx based on your name and your channel. So like, what are some of the unique features of the system that really kind of drew you in and made you such a fan of it?
Well, I guess I didn't have a choice when I first started with it, because I was like 4 and my dad just brought one home. It was that was the console. So I guess initially I was just into it because that was the one of one option to play. And although I did end up getting exposed to other systems shortly after that. My babysitter had an Atari 2600 that she would pull out sometimes. And this was like a neighborhood babysitter, so all the kids in the neighborhood would come to this lady's house while all the parents went and worked. And and so every once in a while, I don't know how, maybe we were all just like annoying her too much or something, but she would pull out the 2600 and we'd play that tank game. Was it Combat? We'd play Combat.
Yeah.
And that was a blast. So I enjoyed that too, and I got exposed to that. And then I had a neighbor, I had a rich neighbor that had a Super Nintendo, And so that was cool. Like right when those came out, they had that. And but even with those options, I did prefer the Turbo until I got the Genesis. The Genesis stole my heart away. But, until then, I really did prefer the Turbo. And I think it was, a big part of it was just the games were just so unique. Like the big marquee games, like Splatterhouse. There was nothing like that on Atari or NES at all, There was nothing like Legendary Axe 2, the Devil's Crush and Alien's Crush, these sort of deranged pinball games. There was nothing like that. And there's still arguably nothing like those games. Excuse me. And so just the game stood out. No other library came along, even to this day, in my opinion, that rivals how much creativity the Turbo library was able to have. Despite being a small library of under 100 games, there was still so much there in terms of variety and character. So I guess that's sort of my long-winded way of answering that question.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome.
So back to the magazine thing for a second, because the GamePro for me was like the mystery of the TurboGrafx, because I never knew anybody that had one growing up during those days. So I would look at games like Bonk and Legendary Axe and all those games, and they were just mystical to me until years later when I could finally emulate them. But it
does have sort of an exotic vibe to it, doesn't it?
It does. So I love it.
I think Legendary Axe was EGM's Game of the Year in '89, I want to say, or '90, whatever year it launched in America.
I remember that, and I love EGM's digital archive goes up on Monday. By the way,
really?
I don't know if you had to give to the Kickstarter or not.
That's cool.
But they have a digital archive of every single EGM ever, and it's searchable. So like if you just want to see their review of whatever, you can.
Oh man,
yeah, it's pretty cool. And
that's cool.
It's gonna be. EGM was my favorite. I mean, GamePro was my favorite, I guess, up until I don't know, late '90s, and then EGM took my heart. Then around I think 2000 or so.
That's cool. That's really responsible of them to have all that after all this time.
I know, right? I mean, Square can't even keep track of the Final Fantasy VIII source code.
Yeah, I mean, Konami can't keep track of Silent Hill 2 stuff. Apparently, that's all gone.
But EGM's like every article we've ever had. Here you go.
That's awesome. Good for them.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Maul, you're up.
Yeah. Well, I just was a point of curiosity. You had the TurboGrafx 16 when you were 4.
I want to say 4, might have been 3. I was born in '88, and Dad brings it in either 90 or 91, somewhere in there, maybe 92 at the absolute latest. And all I remember is that by the time he brought the system home, there was already like a good selection of games, because it was like every weekend or so he would get another game or two, and we just added to the library. And so there wasn't a lot of waiting around for like a game. You know, games
Sure.
were out, so it was somewhere in the early '90s where the turbo had been out for a minute, and it wasn't quite dead, but it was probably like past its prime, I guess, in that way, because the Genesis was out kicking its butt, and Super Nintendo was on the way, and so it was kind of getting squeezed out. It was in the process of getting squeezed out when I came in, but I was a little kid, I didn't care. It was just
sure.
I played it.
Well, I was just curious, like, you're a young lad then in that scenario, and you've got
it's all relative, I guess.
the system that had the taste of the exotic. Right. So like, what was that like growing up? Were you like the only kid with a TurboGrafx, and like, what were your friends like thoughts if they ever came over to play that thing with you?
It was funny because I remember distinctly multiple times where that conversation that we've all heard of Sonic versus Mario was unfolding. The wars were happening, the battles were happening right before my eyes, and there were a couple of times where I was like, "Hey, y'all know about Bonk though?" And they were like, "What?" And then they'd go back to Mario versus Sonic, So there was definitely a couple of those. And I forget who said it, but one of y'all said you never knew anybody with a turbo growing up. Neither did I. I was the only one I knew. And so it really wasn't until I was in my 20s, I guess, when there was more people like on forums and stuff talking about weird, obscure things where I could actually connect with other people that knew what the heck I was even talking about. So it was a little lonely island, but that's okay because I enjoyed the Genesis and I enjoyed Nintendo over at friends' houses and stuff too. So I was plugged in enough.
It wasn't like completely alien conversations. We're like, what the hell is a Sonic?
I could jump in. Exactly. I could jump in on Sonic conversations a little bit, and it wasn't too long before I was on that side of the war. I ended up on that side of the war for sure.
Yeah. I just remember like my only exposure to it as a youngin was in Penny's Outlet. For a good number of years, they were pushing that really hard at Christmas time.
Penny's, really? JCPenney's?
Yeah, well, because the outlet center would have, you wouldn't see that like in the main store. Mm-hmm. But it was mostly from the catalog, I think, because their catalog every year would have everything: toys, electronics, and in the mail order pre-internet days. Darria, Logan, we used to not have Amazon. We had to send in written
I never knew
written lists of things with a thing we called a check, and that would get us the stuff that would come in the mail. But anyway, so the leftovers from the catalog ended up at the outlet store, so they had like everything there. For quite a few times I'd go in there and play the TurboGrafx, because I'd see it in the magazines like you guys, but no one rented those.
Do you remember what was on those? What game was playing on those that you played?
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to see like what it was, because it was
probably Keith Courage, I bet.
Yes, absolutely, Keith Courage. Yeah. I remember there was that, and there was one like a side-scrolling shooter.
Oh, well, then you have to narrow down more than that.
I know, right? Yeah, like what's
There's a couple of those.
Just like can't think of like the look of it very much. Like, Keith Courage was like very commonly on there.
That
like
was the
launch
pack-in,
time, whatever.
So that was like the default game for a lot of people.
Right.
I just remember the
ads.
Like the ads were on TV all the time, and I'd be like, what's? Because I was obsessed with video games, and I'd be like, what's that? And my family would be like, we're a Nintendo family. Nintendo is better.
Yep. You've already got your game box.
Yeah. Oh, shit, Retro Corner. Thanks for the sub. Appreciate that. And I have to do the obligatory. If you like what you're seeing, we'd really appreciate a like and a subscription. That would be fantastic. We're looking to pass 10,000 views here today total. So appreciate your help with that.
Yeah, I see
as well.
12 people watching right now. We should have at least 10 likes.
Yes,
right?
We should. You should all like it right now and through the week.
2 people don't have to do it, but everyone else does.
Exactly. And D ... Thanks for joining the Discord.
We'll bait some likes. So in addition to playing TurboGrafx at Penny's Outlet, that's where I would famously go and find my Bravestarr action figures. So if any of you guys remember Bravestarr, give it a like.
What is Braves? Is that like He-Man, sort of like that? Yeah,
actually, it was like a few years later, it was going to be like their next big thing. They thought was Bravestarr. He was
I remember that. I remember Bravestarr.
Yeah, he was a cowboy and on a space planet, and he had the power of various
cowboy.
animals.
He used his sheriff star thing to cut through the rock. Do you remember that? He'd put it on the ground
What
and it'd
the heck?
spin.
I have never
It
seen
was like
that.
a buzzsaw. He'd like take his thing. And
There is a horseman.
Man, I'm so lost here.
Yeah, so the gimmick
Bravestarr.
with the toys is that the toys had lasers in them, and so you would do like a fast draw if they had the laser pack on them, and they, one of them would shoot the other one and hit the one first. That one would like fall over or whatever. So you could like play like fast draw with your toys, and like the gun, they had like a replica of the gun and had a laser in it as well. But anyway,
That's wild.
they go watch the Toy Galaxy video on this. They explain the whole thing better than I ever could, but they totally bungled the launch of it and like released the series before, like way before the toys, toys before the series, which came out before the movie. The movie was the last thing that came out, really well animated, but it has the entire mythology explained in it. And it came out after the show was canceled and the toys had already flopped.
Wow.
And,
Oh man.
Well, thanks for the new rabbit hole. I'm definitely going to go down in that.
yeah, it's worthwhile. It's
Oh,
actually a
he's-
really cool show.
I'm looking at
He's
the characters
great.
right now. There's a humanoid horse with a bazooka, so I'm in.
It's surprisingly like kind of dark in some episodes too. Look up the one where his boyhood hero ends up being a bandit, like turning into a bandit. Pretty dope. Pretty good episode.
I have those on my Plex server.
I'm in.
That's it. Yeah, Maul's great for these rabbit holes, by the way. He will point out the coolest
Nice.
80s things that you've never heard
It's because
of.
I'm old. It's great.
You're not that
I'm
much
old as
older
well.
than us.
You're
What are you
wise. You're just wise.
Yeah.
Except for
Yeah.
Darria and Logan, who are fountain of youth over there. Speaking of Logan, what a transition, Logan. Your turn.
Yeah. So, what makes a good game for you? What really hooks you? And it can be for any genre.
There's really two ways you can go about getting me hooked in a game, I guess. There's execution, which is more often than not what gets me. Like just do it right. Like one of my favorite games of all time I bring up a lot is God of War for the PS2 and God of War 2. There's almost nothing about those two games that's original at all. They took from Devil May Cry, they took from this and that, and they just executed, and they're just really fun to play. And I love those games. So that's one route. Other route is just something different, just something like creative, and it doesn't need to be super polished. It doesn't need to be, fully featured. It doesn't need to, have a lot of the things that people expect to have. Games like Katamari Damacy that completely just broke my brain when I played it. I was like, I've never played anything like this. I can barely even comprehend it. And I sat down when the first time I played that game, I sat and played the whole game from beginning to end. I didn't 100% it or anything, but I got to the credits. And it was like a 5 or 6 hour session. And, so either of those routes, like you can do something that I've never seen before, or just execute your idea and make it, like intuitive, and I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to get lost. It's okay if I'm up against something that's, that I'm learning, like, a boss or something that I'm having trouble with. That's fine. But I don't want to get lost. I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to get confused. I hate puzzles where puzzles don't belong. Half of the Uncharted games really annoy me because it's like I'm having a great time, and then it's like, oh, now you need to put the pottery with the right person and then push the floor tile. It's like I don't want. Some of that's fine, I guess, but avoid unnecessary puzzles. That's kind of my big bugaboo. And just be true to your vision. Like, don't let too many chefs come in the kitchen and water everything down. That's something about modern games that I kind of repels me a little bit.
Yes.
You can just feel some of these games. It's like, I can just feel that there's 100 people all putting in their 2 cents constantly on this game. And it's like, what was the original vision 10 years ago when they started development? I have no idea by the time I'm actually playing it, because so many marketing people and executives and people who aren't writers and aren't necessarily that creative have all morphed little bits of it here and there. And so that have a vision, have a singular vision, and make it make it what it's supposed to be, whatever that is. I can play a driving game. I can play, I can play like a volleyball game or a sports game or a hockey game. I can play any genre. Action games, I have my favorite genres, but I can play any genre as long as it has its own vision, it stands out in some way, and or it's just executed well and isn't watered down by, trying to please everyone a little bit as opposed to pleasing its audience a lot,
That was a really great answer. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's great.
I agree with literally everything you said. That was all
You can't focus group something to death for sure.
Yeah, I think that's happening a lot these days. And some of that I understand because at some point there's so much money on the line with some of these games. Like I read somewhere that this Spider-Man, almost said Splatterhouse 2, Spider-Man 2 cost $350 million to make. Spider-Man, it's built a game built on the bones of another game. They didn't even have to start from scratch. They have the same map of New York City. It's just more shiny windows, I guess. And a bunch of mocap and voice acting and writing and stuff, which is cool, but over $350 million to make that game. So when there's that much money on the line, which there shouldn't have been in the first place, but if there is, I guess I get it. They have to sell a bajillion copies or everyone's going to lose their job. So on one hand, I sort of get it. But on the other hand, it's like, I don't think the solution for me as a consumer of games is to keep going up this ladder that never ends and keep charging more for games and keep investing more in games. I think the solution really is to go the opposite direction. Spend less, make smaller games. Make games that are 6 hours long again and sell them for $40 or $50. That's, as a consumer, I'd like to see more of that. But, we'll see what happens. It looks like I'm not going to... the indie scene is always there. That's where I spend a lot of time now. But as far as the AAA scene, that's the direction they're going.
Yeah. Well, you've just described the death by success of like every entertainment industry. As soon as someone realizes that it makes money and gets in there.
Yeah, like
I do often miss like the 80s and 90s and just how much weird shit we would get into. Like just... Like Bravestarr,
the indie scene still has plenty of that.
It does.
True.
Maybe
that's
nothing is
for all
good.
mediums.
It's interesting. It was interesting though to have it done by like a studio. Not that it needs to be, but it was interesting to have like a weird idea come out of like Capcom or Konami or Nintendo. And which you would never. Well, maybe Nintendo, but from the other ones, you wouldn't. Really see that.
Yeah.
I think there was something it was coming out of Japan at the time too. Like Japan had a wild imagination, collectively going on at the time.
I would argue they still do.
Well, sometimes, but there's definitely like if you watched anime, if you have a Crunchyroll subscription and want to see how many isekai are out there and how similar those all are, like there's definitely something the same kind of plague over there as well.
It's gotten well past redundant for sure.
Yeah.
In that whole subgenre.
Yeah.
But
all right, Logan.
All right, I'm going to hit up the chat here a little bit. Okay. So, first from Fenris, I remember I wanted to be a big-time game designer when I was young. Then college kicked me and I dropped out of that dream, and now I make videos working on consoles. Okay. That's cool. That's really cool. I'm sorry you had to move away from game design, but we love all your modding. So
you can still make a game. Look at Undertale.
Yeah.
Undertale's great.
You might have to adjust your scope of your project, but game development's never been easier than it is right now. You could argue, if you can carve out a couple hours a week or whatever to just slowly chip away at it, you can do it. Just depends on what you want to make, I guess.
Yeah, scope is a big thing. I've always struggled with any games, really anything I make, just keeping scope in check. But you can do a lot with all the tools available now.
And it's funny. I discovered this game that's going to be coming out on Steam soon, but it's literally the developer making a sledding game with little animal characters, and he's going through sharing his process like as he works on it.
Oh, what's the game? Shout him out.
It's literally a sledding game.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Let me look it up real quick.
I would open
Like
Steam,
sledding
but I
in the
never
snow?
open anything when OBS is open because
He
I
has
worry
an
about scary
Instagram
things
account.
happening.
But it's super cool to see the process, like his reasoning behind like the character models, or as he's learning different things about painting and all of that.
Voice of reason strikes again. Thanks, Darria.
Yeah.
This is really cool.
But
I'm loving the way this little character looks. What a great little froggy little
yes.
thing. I love him.
And the company is the Sledding Corporation. He's really dedicated to sledding.
This looks cool.
Yeah.
Dedicated.
So I really want to play that.
One dude making
out.
a game about sledding. That's the about.
I'm down. I'm down
His
with that game.
videos are hilarious as he like explains the way that he's like kind of exploring the different things you can do within the game.
When I open Steam, I'm going to follow and do all the things with that
Yeah.
game. Great find,
Sledding
Darria.
game.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Super rad. Any more from the
Yeah.
chat, Logan?
Yeah, there's some more stuff. Maximus Prime V1 says, I still have some old Nintendo Power magazines. That's cool.
I have a bunch in a thing. I've got
This might be worth some money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could be, especially if they're in good condition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did anyone subscribe
Okay.
to the Video Game History Museum thing where they send you an old magazine every month?
I
Didn't
No?
subscribe
Didn't
to
know
that.
you did that.
No.
So the Video Game History Museum Foundation, I don't know, a VGHF, whatever.
Video Game History
I saw
Foundation.
their
There you go.
PVC
There you
last
go.
year.
I thank you. I should say their name, but they do a bunch with preservation, and they have basically every magazine, every video game literature of every kind. And since they have extras of things, if you donate to them, they send you one every month. And you can pick
Wow.
your era, so you can pick like 80s
That's
and 90s, or you can pick like 2000s. I of course do the old ones. And sometimes Jack's posted on the Discord there, which also should go through to the YouTube. But you get some cool stuff. I've got Nintendo Power, I've gotten Game Pro, I've gotten EGM, and it's always different. Last time I got some computer magazine I'd never heard of, but it was still cool because it was like, and they're always in really, really good condition. Like they're pretty much mint. So anyway,
Damn.
and you get to
All right.
support like what I think
They
is a pretty
had-
good cause. Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, one of the other podcasts I listened to, they actually had Frank Cifaldi. They had Frank Cifaldi on from the Video Game History Foundation, and he was talking about the high quality scanners that they had, and it was kind of incredible just just hearing him talk about the high quality procedure and what that machine does and why it gets like everything, not just kind of like, hey, I'm putting this book right on top of this thing and it's gonna scan it.
That's also, we should mention they have a digital library too. EGM has theirs up, and then the VGHF, they have Game Pro. They have
Nice.
a bunch of magazines, and they're gradually putting pretty much all of them up. They're actually trying to get Congress to allow them to put some of the older video games up for preservation. And they want kind of a library situation, not just with the literature, but also with games. So far, they've been struck down, and the powers that be don't want them to put
Yeah. The
games
boomers.
up. But maybe someday, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
Now,
Anything?
once we get some more millennials and Gen Zers in Congress, I think that won't be hard at all. It's just boomers don't understand. They don't get it.
Too many old
Yeah.
people.
They're like, we already have Citizen Kane.
Run for
I love
something.org.
old people, but we need some diversity of
Get out of
People.
here.
up in
Get out
there.
of here.
Like Logan, what's going on in the chat?
Yeah, so I'll hit up a couple more things.
Cool.
Let's see here. So Shin Retro Corner asks, "Hey Johnny, did you have a TurboGrafx CD add-on back in the day?"
I did not. I didn't even know it existed until, many years after it was defunct, honestly. I was just all about the Hue cards. And then once the Genesis caught my attention, I didn't it wasn't cut off. I'm not playing Turbo anymore. It wasn't like that. But it just, my interests just kind of went elsewhere for a long time until I sort of started looking back on the Turbo as a teenager and a little bit older than that. Then I realized, there was this whole other thing. There was a CD thing. And then I ended up getting one from someone somewhere, and it worked for about a week, so that was fun. But didn't have one originally. It would have been cool though. I would have enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Great games on that thing.
Yeah, real good ones.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Maximus Prime asks, do you think the Resident Evil game has a good balance of action and puzzles?
The original?
They don't specify. They just say Resident Evil game, so I'm
think he's
guessing the
thinking-
original.
Sounds like series with the zzz, maybe.
Okay.
I think the
Maybe.
new ones I think have a real good balance. I love 7 and 8. Those are arguably the two best in the series. I really like the original, but that was a little those old school survival horror games. I mean, some of those puzzles are just so obtuse and random. Like, I don't know what some of the stuff makes no sense. Like, you have to get the doll and melt it to get a piece of string and then use that to open a shaft or something. And like in Silent Hill 2, there were some real bad ones. So I like the way they do it in the modern ones. I know that they probably feel kind of brain dead to people who like harder puzzles. But it's just enough to get me, like, to put some variety in the experience and break up the shooting and the jump scares and stuff. So, yeah, I like the way 7 and 8 have done them. I hope they stick to that.
Cool.
Cool.
All right. I think I'm gonna.
I
hit
would
up,
be surprised if we see something new soon.
Yeah, hopefully.
You know.
I'm down. Whatever it is.
Where
Capcom's
was-
on a roll.
Where was my Mega Man X9 though today? You know, maybe I won't get a Switch now. Switch 2.
Were there rumors
they
of that?
still have X in the scrap
was-
heap.
there was like a-
unfortunately.
Very slight rumor that
This-
maybe
Probably
But,
always rumors.
Sounds like just wish casting.
it was
Yeah,
it was
that's,
total wish casting. You're right.
The current Capcom is never putting out another Mega Man game. I'm sorry. Break, we're
Don't break my heart. So
I
sad.
think we're
hey, leadership will change. Something may change, but not right now.
And spiritual successors
Not right
are
now.
always a thing too. You
That's
know,
true.
you could still get your fix
true.
with like newer IPs from the AA and indie scene.
That is true, and there is
Yeah.
some good ones out. There are some good ones out there for sure. I want Mega Man X9, and I want Zero to come in, and I want the music from X, but like super amazingly. And actually, if you guys have ever heard of Met, he's got a he's on SoundCloud and Apple Music and stuff, and his name is like Christoph something, but he goes by Met, like Metal in the Mega Man games, and he's done metal remakes of every single Mega Man game, even the Zero
Wow.
Oh, cool.
games, and
Wow.
all the
That's
X
a lot of
games.
work.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's been a few years since he's been doing it. He's done like DuckTales and a few other Capcom games too.
That's
But
cool.
anyway, I want that quality of music, and like I want it to still be pixels though. I don't want it to be all weird 3D polygon stuff. But yeah. All right, that's my
Pixels are cool.
wish casting.
I'd be
And
down
I want
with
it
it
to
if
be-
it looked like Streets of Rage 4. You remember how they
I
did
could
that?
do that.
Where it's like 2D
I could do that.
visuals,
Yeah.
but they're not
Yeah.
pixelated. It's like a modern 2D look. I like that look. That'd be
And
good
two-
for Mega Man.
And 2 players,
Yeah.
Zero and X at the same time.
Ooh, okay.
Well, if nothing else, Break, you can always go back to Mighty Number 9.
Yep,
We can do this more of that.
just as good.
Just as good, Paul. Just as good. You know, that's a sore
Yes,
subject.
just as good.
The disappointment level was high. Although I will say, I don't think it's as bad as like people get super angry. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's like the worst game that's ever been made.
No, but it's
No.
not. It's not the relation of it to Mega Man doomed it though, because it's not even
Yeah.
remotely as good as
Not
as
even
anything with
close.
that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Which is sad. But is there anything more in the chat, or should we move on to
Okay.
Darria?
There's 2 more things I'm gonna read.
All right.
So first we've got from Castlemania Games, CM Ryan. I love the show. This is my favorite show. Really appreciate that. Veteran
thank
says,
you.
"Oh, hi, Ryan." And then last thing from Washburn. What's Anton like to play when he's not listening like a Greek god? I'm gonna guess Donkey Kong.
Did you really have to read that one? Hi, Max from Connecticut. Nice to see you. Seriously. What am I? I don't know. I'll just give out an answer. I've been playing a lot lately. Soldier Blade for the PC
Ooh,
Engine.
nice choice.
Yeah, I've been, and actually, I should say. Oh God, now that the name is escaping me. It's the really cool one you did on your underappreciated shmups video on Shmup Junkies channel.
Dead Moon.
Dead Moon. Yeah, I've been playing
Yeah.
that one recently too.
Yeah,
I
you
was-
mentioned that on the last episode, right? And how you're getting a little bit of a noise from it.
Yeah, I was. I'm getting a weird noise from that I'm not getting on other games. Are you
Did you
getting,
ever figure out what that was, or are you still?
it's still just getting it. Do you get any kind of noise during that game in the silent parts?
I haven't. No, I don't. You know, I'm gonna really. Once I heard that, I actually listened to that part earlier today, and I was thinking I'm gonna really try that out and see what if I can duplicate that and maybe find that out, because I don't remember that ever happening. Are you using an EverDrive or are you
I am using a
regular?
Turbo EverDrive Pro.
Okay,
So
on an original system.
On a PC engine, and it has Zaxor's mod on it that allows for stereo sound. But every other game works. Like if I play a different game, I don't get that issue.
It's you just got to isolate, like try different things if you can, like try the RF, from the system. And if you're still getting it, then, it might be the system. It's almost certainly not the game. I would, the game either works or it doesn't generally with those games, you don't have like weird in between.
That's good to know. I could also just be like looking too closely. Sometimes I get a little.
Maybe, or it could be your sound system just like buzzing a little bit. I don't know if you have like optical cables or what you're using for your sound, because different formats of carrying the sound can sometimes introduce feedback.
That's true. I need to go look at everything because I want it to sound delicious.
Yeah, just keep changing stuff until it goes away, and then you like continue to isolate it, and it takes a while, but it's that's the only real way to figure it out.
Probably gonna do it tonight while this uploads to Spotify, because that takes like 2 hours, and that'll be
okay.
But thank you. No, I appreciate that, and thank you for listening as well, for sure.
Yeah, that was a good episode. Your last one, I like that one.
Yeah, that was fun. I've really, it's been so much fun. Jack, Maul, Logan, and Darria to restart this show. I really appreciate y'all. It's been it's been tonight's a blast as well. It's always a lot of fun. So
I loved it when you reached out to me a couple weeks ago or whatever it was at this point, and I could look into these shows, because this is exactly the type of content I like to listen to. Sorry, my cat's in the way.
Oh, awesome. I love your cat too. Daria's cat has not made an appearance yet.
Cats.
I know, it's weird. My cat, I have 3 cats, and one of them has made an appearance.
Oh, well, mine always do at some point, it seems. I think they get like, they hear me talking, and they're like, what's going on over there? And they just eventually can't. Yeah. They can't resist. They just get curious. Especially this one, Miku. She's like 2.5, and she's kind of insane, but that's all right.
Awesome. Well, appreciate the kind words. Like I was telling Johnny before the show, I've been watching his channel for quite a while now and really enjoy his videos. So if you haven't checked out Johnny Grafx on YouTube, definitely do so, because a lot of really great content. Not just TurboGrafx 16 stuff either. There's stuff for modern consoles, Genesis, and lots of different really cool stuff. So
yeah, I really want to find a way to do more content about PS1 stuff, because that's probably my favorite console, like in terms of just the library.
Ooh.
There's so many things I want to talk about with the PS1, but I just haven't cracked that code yet to like find a format or a way to talk about it where people in my audience actually care. It's because every time I do a PS1 focused video, it just bombs. So
interesting.
I'm still gonna do it, but I'd like to find a way where people want to watch it too. So yeah. I'm gonna crack that code eventually.
Well, I'm excited to see it, because there's every once in a while I'll stumble upon. I mean, there's so many PS1 games that there's always stuff that you could discover. I mean, every time I look at that system, I know there's so many games that I haven't heard of that I would enjoy.
Like, say your video is bombing that. It's like, does your particular audience not seem to care, or do you think that it hasn't like aged yet to where like the net audience is not there for it or looking for it yet?
It's hard to say exactly what it is, because my philosophy is I make content that I would like to see more of. That's like my main driving thing, and I want to make just what I think is fun. So, and that's had just following that North Star has led me into all sorts of results. Sometimes it's worked out real well and popped real nicely, and sometimes it's absolutely bombed and not done anything. So more so the former than the latter lately, though. So I'm going to continue to do that. But the analytics tell you quite a bit. I could look at it forever and overanalyze the crap out of it and probably still not really learn a whole lot. But from what I can tell, it just seems like I just haven't cracked it yet. I just haven't cracked that nut just yet. But I will. I'll keep trying it because at the end of the day, it is just for fun.
Just try to talk about more dumb games in that era. I think that's what gets people going.
That's what I like. I like videos about just like weird, obscure games that like people don't talk about. And I know all kinds of those.
So a video about Pepsi Man. Pepsi Man, like great
Pepsi
stuff.
Man.
Pepsi Man's fun.
God,
it's more
I'm
fun
so
than
bad
you
at
think.
Pepsi Man. It's kind of hard.
It is hard, but it's fun. I remember I told my kids there was a game starring Pepsi Man, and they didn't believe me. And I was like, "Come downstairs. I will
There's a
show
theme
you
song and everything.
the legend of the Pepsi Man."
It's wild.
For sure. All right. Well, Darria,
Yes.
it's finally time. We had a lot of stuff,
Finally
which is
come
great.
around.
Which is great. Please keep writing in. We love the interactivity. So join our Discord, BreakmanX.com, or write in on YouTube, wherever is convenient for you, and give us a like and subscribe. I found out after the last video that actually does help. So I'm begrudgingly saying it. So
It does.
it does.
So, my question is about like your videos themselves. They seem very well edited and produced. Do you have any previous like video production experience or anything like that?
Well, I'm glad to hear that you think they're well produced. Yeah, I have a little bit of background, I guess. Not a lot, professionally speaking, but I've been interested in video editing for a very long time. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, video cameras were on your shoulder. They were like bazookas, kind of.
Yeah.
And my dad had one of those, and of course he'd pull it out on Christmas morning and stuff like that. But I just got more and more fascinated with it, and I mean, you just put a whole VHS tape in it. It's basically a VCR with a lens. That's what those are. And so I would just film action figures and stupid stuff, and so I would learn that stopping recording and starting recording somewhere else can like create this sort of cut. And that's for a while, because I'm just a little kid, I don't know. But I figured that's what was video editing. Like that's what video editing was. Like that's post-production. You shoot the movie in order.
Yeah.
And everything, and you stop recording right when it needs to stop. There's no actual, I didn't think about editing for a while. But eventually, I got my hands on Windows Movie Maker back in the day. Mm-hmm. Did some 4x3 videos, some people might remember some WMVs. And just had fun with it, filming my friends skateboarding on high 8 tapes and stuff. And there
sounds
was
like a fun time.
It was, we got away with more than we probably should have got away with. But, this was the era of Jackass too. So we're like, oh, let's, throw watermelons off the roof and stuff. And one thing that I kind of discovered was you could plug this camera, because this had the AV output, just the yellow and the white and red. And you could plug those into a VCR and record in real time from your high 8 to a VHS tape on the VCR as like the new cut. So what I would do is I would play the skateboarding tape or whatever on the video camera, the video of that, and one speaker is plugged into the VCR, whereas the other speaker is coming from a little CD Walkman I have from the headphone jack of it. So I would play, Black Sabbath or something on it. And so that was it. That was video editing. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but I was putting, a goofy video of me and my friends, and then some song like Pennywise or whatever I was listening to at the time. And I was making a video, and that was actually like a guerrilla form of like video editing. And so I guess from then, being 9, 10, whatever, 11, when I figured that out, up until Movie Maker, and then, I did some work in local news media where, the video editing, your skill wasn't as important past a certain point. You needed to be competent. Mm-hmm. But what really mattered in that field was speed. You got to crank stuff out. You got a story, you got to go shoot it. Yep. You got to get an interview. You got to make sure you did it right. You got to bring it back to the station. You got to edit it. You got to transcribe it. And you got to do all that within like literally 4 or 5 hours. And you have to do it for like 5 things, And it was, I learned a lot of efficiency doing that, even though I didn't like that pressure. Ultimately, that just wasn't for me. But I did learn to be efficient and to let things go. That was a big lesson. because I could edit a video forever. I could never stop. I mean, you could just do it forever, especially if you like video editing like I do. Like you could just edit something literally forever if you let yourself. And so I learned how to let go and just let it be whatever it's going to be. And yeah, maybe this could have been better or shorter or longer or whatever. But it's important to know when to just let something be and move on. So I learned that doing that. And from there, I think it's mostly just me kind of refining my style from there, just kind of on my own. And, I did some work in marketing and, shot a few, some variety of things with that as well. So yeah, video editing has definitely been a part of my professional life for a long time and really just a hobby. It's just something I've always enjoyed.
That's awesome. Yeah, I used to
Very
work
cool.
For the news. I was a video editor and technical director. So
Okay. So
I understand
Oh yeah.
that quick turnaround time.
Yeah. Were you guys working with like the mini DV tapes still when you did it, or
No,
it was just SD cards?
Yep, SD
Okay.
cards and then digital libraries with different servers.
Yeah, you got to learn a lot of organization because there's so many like little B-roll shots and stuff, and you never know what you might need 3 years down the road, So I'm sure that was fun.
Darria made a pretty awesome sports show too. When what was that called?
Oh yeah.
K-Nation.
K-Nation. Yeah, it was really good. Very well
Yep,
done.
I started just as a technical director on that, just helping with like coding the show, and coding in the sense of telling the robotic cameras where to go at what point in time, which audios to go on and off. And so, but as like the show went on, I started to help more with editing like the longer interview segments. And it's a really good team that I was working with too. So it was always just an absolute joy to kind of work on that. And then eventually I started to go out and shoot some of those events, sporting events.
Okay. So you saw every side of it eventually.
I did.
Cool.
Yeah,
It's an experience. It's definitely a learning experience, and you learn how to deal with pressure, and you learn how to deal with, things going wrong, and that you need something fixed within 30 seconds. What are you going to do?
Literally up to the time of the show, and you got to make it work.
It's wild. It's an experience.
Super crazy. Well, speaking of professional experience, we talked about this a little bit at the very top of the show, but I did see in your profile that you do some voice work, which doesn't surprise me because you definitely have a voice that catches the mic for sure.
Thank you.
How did you get started with that, and where can we find your work?
Well, let's see. If you are a geriatric man and you're looking for a book on how to do calisthenics, there's a good chance you're going to come across one of the voiceovers that I did for it. Because I don't know why that's a niche that I found myself in. A lot of just
That
random,
Turbo Graphics, it's like
yeah, I know. Life is crazy. Most of the voiceover work I do is really it's just this nonfiction kind of audiobook stuff. I've moved away from audiobooks lately. Really kind of using Fiverr a lot. My Fiverr profile probably has the most updated stuff. Where people will, it's kind of different. You're not as aggressively like pursuing clients. You're just kind of like you have your lures out there and people come to you. And all kinds of stuff comes to me from there. I just did a little ad spot for an HVAC repair company somewhere in the country, and just a weird, this little random commercial somewhere I'll probably never see, And so a lot of that kind of stuff comes through, and you're a little bit. I wish I wasn't so detached from it, but I think that's just kind of the nature of the business. You need to kind of move on to the next thing, and because that's the thing that I try to provide so people aren't tempted to go to the AI thing is I try to be quick. I try to be real quick and real communicative and sort of do that, sort of how like Dunder Mifflin was kind of hanging on, even though paper's irrelevant, Like, I have great customer service, kind of taking that approach. But yeah, it's fun, and to an extent it pays the bills, and it's, it's not a bad business to be into, and you get to work from home. And, I have this curtain here. I pull this over here, and all of a sudden I'm in a recording booth. It's not just my computer desk. And so it's fun, but it can be challenging, and it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody, and burnout is definitely a thing. But for now it's working for me, and I've got some other ideas for things I want to do in the future. But for now, I'm enjoying it for what it is.
Very cool.
Awesome. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. Jack, do you want to go ahead and move on to your?
Yeah. So, Johnny, is there a particular developer of TurboGrafx 16 games that you really think took advantage of the hardware in unique ways, or just thinking of it, now coming back to the console, not necessarily what you were playing when you were growing up, and that was what you had?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Hudson Soft takes the cake, just in terms of having such a command of that hardware. Now, they were part of the deal with the creation of the PC Engine. A lot of people know this, some people don't, but it was Hudson Soft and NEC. NEC was going to make the hardware, they were going to manufacture it, and then Hudson Soft is going to make the games and just fill up the library with whatever the heck they could. And they did. And, and they got some third-party support later on. You see some Namco games like Dragon Spirit. They did a good job. Splatterhouse, Namco. A handful of others. Ordyne, I think, was pretty neat. That's a Namco game. And then, some other companies like Irem had, of course, one of the best versions of R-Type, I would argue, is on the TurboGrafx 16. It's, I like it more than the arcade version. It's awesome. And Vigilante, and a couple other oddball games like Legend of Hero Tonma. So Irem sort of had their own little corner of it. And I like Data East. I would say Data East made some cool games too. I really like, they did Bloody Wolf. They did what's that game? The Silent Debuggers. They did that crazy game, which is basically the first it's basically like Dead Space before Dead Space.
Yeah.
That game rules.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's very timely. This is a Dead Space 3 shirt though, so we won't talk about that. There's a 3 on here, and won't let you see it. But yeah, so I think Hudson, obviously they had just such a command from it because they were just there at the beginning, and they helped design everything. I mean, the chips inside the TurboGrafx, one of them has that B logo on it. I forget, it might be the CPU. But if you go in, you'll see this is Hudson branded this thing even on the inside.
Yeah.
So there's intimately involved. So so that's how you got all the Bonk games and Air Zonk and so many of the shooters like Soldier Blade, and so many of these just fantastic games that was how did this run? You look at the game, you're like, how is all that in this little card? How is that all that in there? It's just so optimized. So yeah, I mean, it's great. Hudson did a great job, but a lot of the third-party support too, as little as it was, really helped fill out that library. So I wouldn't want to throw shade at anybody. I think everyone came together and made that library what it is, short-lived as it was.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. They definitely have some of my favorite games on there. JJ and Jeff, or Ken and Keto Chan, is just one of my favorites. It's just
it's kind of a divisive game. I was shocked to grow up and see other people talking about JJ and Jeff and see how many people hated it.
I know.
Why I still don't really, I haven't heard a good argument as to why that game sucks. I think it's great.
It's like Adventure Island, but with just modern doofuses.
Yeah. And
giant, it's such a fun game. I mean,
there's so much. Yeah, there's little secrets all over the place, and the little casino mini game is fun, and it's just those are. I think Kato and Ken-chan, I guess, has more wow factor because of how absurd it is. But I like JJ. I like the American version too. I mean, it's a good game. It's not graphically super impressive, right? But it's fun.
But it's just fun. Yeah,
yeah. It's good.
It's something you wouldn't see. Probably wouldn't see on the other two systems as well.
No, it's too weird. Yeah.
I love the weirdness, though. I was playing. Oh, now I can't remember. It is a Japanese name, but it's the one where you're in the cemetery. Beside, I'll look it up in a second. But it was pretty weird and pretty fun.
Cemetery. Oh, you're thinking of Joguki Maguri.
Yep. The gibber. Yep. The gibber. I just remember the gibbery part. Maguri or something.
Yeah, Maguri. Yeah. It's a weird one, but that's a good one. Yeah.
It's
very
good.
hard.
It is good. I saw someone, I can't remember where I saw it, to be honest with you, but I saw it and I was like, oh, it's a cemetery. That's gotta be fun. I just like the general vibe of it. There's all sorts of games on the PC Engine that just have a vibe. It's like unlike
it's a vibe.
Yeah, unlike anything else. It's like punk rock and just some coolness there. So.
It embraces. I think what one thing they really missed was trying to appeal to the Western audience and not just leaning into being weird and Japanese, because that's what it was. That's what the PC Engine was. And that's why it had so much character in Japan. And in America, I mean, it had character here too. Like, I love the vibe of the TurboGrafx also for what it was. But there's also this sense that it's like trying to hide its like weirdness a little bit, like on the surface. I mean, you play the games, you can't help but see it. But like marketing wise, they were trying to make it seem like more like normal than it was. It's not normal. It's very strange. And they should have leaned into that more.
They should have, yeah, exactly. Especially during the 90s. That was like
that's when you could do it.
Because Genesis already had like the I'm edgy thing. Like, they already had that. Like, you're not going to beat Sega at being the edgy kid. So it might as well just be the weird kid. Because Nintendo's like, I'm the kid that shows up on time and gets good grades and I'm normal. And then Genesis is like, I'm the bully. I'm the crazy kid. And then, TurboGrafx could have been like, I'm the weird one, But they missed it. They missed that opportunity.
TurboGrafx, we eat paste.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Well, Maul, now that you have the great comment, it's your turn.
Yeah, well, we may already have the answer to this, but aside from 16-bit games, what is your favorite era of gaming to play? I know you mentioned the PlayStation 1 and your love for its games earlier. Is that where you're going to land on that?
That would be it. I don't even know if I could pick between 16 and 32-bit eras. They're both. I love them both for different reasons, but I think probably just about equally. But yeah, if it weren't for the 16-bit era, I mean, I'd just be playing PS1 and PS2, I guess, to a slightly lesser extent. But the 32-bit era is really interesting to me because that's when they had just enough money to make something really come to life. Like the original Silent Hill, for instance. You could not have done that game on the Genesis or the Super Nintendo. At the closest you could get to that would be something like that original Clock Tower game, right? Which was good in its own way. But Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill and the original Resident Evil also, and a lot of those early horror games, Overblood, some of those weirder ones, there was nothing you couldn't really do it before that. You could conceivably do a lot of the stuff in the 16-bit era on an 8-bit system if you were willing to scale it back. But when the PS1 and the N64 and the Saturn, when that generation rolled around, it was a new era, and you could really bring things to life. But they weren't so expensive to do, and they weren't so time consuming to make that it was like it is now, where it's like we have to make a bunch of money or we can't make anything. It didn't have the problem that it has now, and that started showing up sort of in the PS3 era. It was just they had the technology and the money to bring something to life, but it wasn't so. But it was still easy enough to make to where a team of 5 or 6 guys could just lock themselves in an office for a couple of months and they could make Skull Monkeys or something like that.
Do you feel like? Oh, and as a side note, Clock Tower remaster coming out this year. Should be cool.
Out.
Oh, is that now? Okay, I missed it then.
WayForward actually gave me a code. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I'm going to.
Nice. But do you think that's like the last era where games were really allowed to be? Yeah, as we've talked about them being weird, because when we were doing our best games of each system, I know I kind of mentioned this to the folks, where my list of games I was kind of picking from really started to shrink after the PS1 for me. I didn't know this just because bias, because that's when I was younger and grew up with them and I had more time for gaming, or if that's just when the creativity even on higher end or larger studio games was really more there and more wild, to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the AAA space, I think it's done. I think it's over. I mean, it's the same thing. I think you were starting to talk about the similarities between movies and games at one point in that regard, and you're absolutely right, because that's the same. That happened to movies 10 years ago, and now it's just happening to games, where it's by the time we get Gal Gadot and, Patrick Bateman and all these expensive people in the movie. And we have the marketing covered and we have, insurance for everybody. And by the time we've got everything ready to make a movie, it's like we have so many obligations that have to be met with the final product that we can't make Eraserhead or anything like that anymore. We can't make, we can't do that anymore because that wouldn't sell, enough to justify the production. So I think that is the death spiral AAA's in. And unless they break out of it, which I don't think they will, it's only going to get worse in that space. So, but the good news is the indie space is as robust as it's ever been. The AA space is as robust as it's ever been. There's still plenty of weird, interesting stuff out there. Just spend a couple minutes browsing around Steam or Humble Bundle or GOG or, even Epic Games. They've got some good stuff on there. Like there's plenty if you're willing to do sort of the, the PC era or area and you're okay with that, which I'm warming up to. I'm always kind of a console guy generally, but there's plenty of weird, interesting stuff out there, and that's getting better too as time goes on. I think you just need to get out of the. Unfortunately, it's just not really going to be in that AAA space going forward. I don't think.
I think on the movie front, this is why I'm still a big horror movie guy at this point, because they're just cheap enough, and they just kind of do whatever they want. Just create, go wild,
And you can make a movie with your phone. Some people can get together if you have some decent lights and a couple of shotgun mics and some halfway decent phones that can shoot in 4K and how to do color grading and stuff in post. You can make a pretty good movie if you really wanted to. So and we're seeing some of that, some of these horror shorts that show up on YouTube and TikTok and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you just got to look for the cool stuff, but it's definitely still out there.
Definitely. Logan, do you want to hit us up on the chat and then?
So, not many new ones this time around, but we do have a good question from Fenris. Johnny, what would you say is one game that you can always replay and never be bored of?
Oh man, there's a lot. I guess the first one that's coming to mind randomly for some reason is Alien Trilogy on the PS1. I can just always, for whatever reason, I'm never not in a mood to play that game. I rarely do actually choose it, but I'm never opposed to it. I could always jump into it.
Is that the shooter?
Yeah, it's like a Doom clone kind of. Okay. It's a little bit slower than Doom, but it's the same idea. It's 3D environment, 2D enemies, and it runs pretty good. That. Oh, it's really good. Yeah, there's a Saturn version and a PS1 version. They're both great. You could go in either one. I chose PS1. I think it maybe looks a little bit better on PS1, but it's real close on both. And fantastic game. And if you emulate it on DuckStation or something, you can remap, the controls to, your DualShock 4 or whatever. That's what I do. And you can play it like you would play a normal first-person shooter, like a modern one. So that cool. Kind of gets you over that tank control hump if you're willing to do all that.
Cool. Well, I'm going to have to try that one out.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I recommend it.
Logan, do you want to get into your question?
Sure. So, are you into any PC games, and is there a particular genre on the PC that strikes you?
I view the PC as a means to an end. It's not my favorite way to play. I work right here where I'm sitting. I work here, and when I'm done working, I don't really want to pull up Steam and play here too. I want to go over to the couch and turn on the PS5 or something. I want to go away from the bad screen and go to the fun screen. And
I get that. I get that 100%.
But because, this is where Steam is, I will do it. And but as far as PC exclusive games, I don't know. I'm not some of these horror games that have come out, Content Warning. Some of those.
I love Content Warning.
Yeah, some of that stuff's pretty interesting. I'm not into all those multiplayer horror games. A lot of them I'm actually kind of roll my eyes at. But that one I really like. That's a cool one. And I just got a really good deal on Humble Bundle for several Earth Defense Force games on PC, which I can't wait. Nice. I haven't played the World Brothers 1 or 2. I haven't played either of those. So now it was $25. I got World Brothers 1, World Brothers 2, Earth Defense Force Iron Rain, and Earth Defense Force 5 for $25. So it's still live on Humble Bundle, by the way. It'll be live for another week or so. So I just did that. And so I'm definitely going to be doing those because I haven't played either of the World Brother games. So I'm interested in that. And I did play 5 on the PS5, but now that I got a friend of mine that is going to get into it with me. So I'm going to sort of escort him through the Earth Defense Force lore a little bit. And then hopefully he'll get 6 because I got 6 waiting on me too. And we can just, destroy all the ants together.
As I say, yeah, a lot of ant killing.
A lot of ants, a lot of wasps, a lot of giant frogmen.
Mm-hmm.
Great games.
Very cool. All right, Darria. Go ahead, Logan.
There's one brand new chat question, actually. Did any of you play any Flash games for Maximus Prime V1? I did. I played, my favorite one would have been Dino Run by Pixel Jam Studios. That one's a lot of fun. It's just like a side-scrolling runner trying to escape the extinction of the dinosaurs. They're actually working on a sequel now. It's going pretty well.
That's cool.
Interesting.
I remember. Do you guys remember Defend Your Castle?
No, I didn't play that
That one doesn't ring a bell to me.
There was a little castle on the right side of the screen, and there were just little stick men running towards it, and you would have to click them with your mouse and drag them up in the air and drop them so they'd fall down and die. And you would have to do that for there'd be more and more of them, and you would eventually lose. But it was like tower defense, but in that Flash game world. That was a big one for me.
Apparently, it eventually came out on Wii.
I think I played
WiiWare,
an app
apparently
game very similar to that.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's tower defense is like perfect for Flash games.
Yeah, I played a lot of Bloons Tower Defense up through 5.
There was a period of time where I was basically living on Newgrounds for like a year or maybe 2 years.
I just imagine
trying to see what the next cool thing they were going to put out was. Like Alien Hominid, man. Like the original Flash game was way more interesting than it should have been, and I was really surprised when it got a full like GameCube release. Like that was pretty amazing for the time.
Newgrounds was something else. That's like the single biggest media preservation failure of all time. Like when support for Flash went away, thousands and thousands and thousands of these games that I know people slaved away on for months and sometimes years at a time, they're just gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, you can get an SWF file on your computer, I guess, and run it, and I guess there's probably some kind of third-party plugin you could put in on Chrome, I guess, if you really wanted to, but nobody's going to do that.
Yeah, there's you can go grab like a self-contained version of Chrome that doesn't actually have to install on your PC. It just will run, and you can run Flash, games or SWF files on that thing. It's a little clunky, but it works.
Yeah, well, I wish there was a more like standardized way to experience those in some way, because I think Newgrounds does still exist, right? It's just a shadow of its former self.
Just
yeah. So that was a fun era though.
That was.
Yes, it was.
I always remember that was where all your base belonged to us premiere too, wasn't it?
I remember that from Something Awful, but it's around the time that was.
It made the rounds and when it went to E-Bomb's World and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
To E-Bomb's World.
I had a shirt, and my principal thought I was going to bomb the school or something. He's like, "What does that mean?" And trying to explain that to like someone who has no idea what any of that is was quite the thing. So
yeah,
I eventually just had to pull up the video, and I don't even know how much that helped. But it didn't go well for me. I'll just
you're either the group of people that get it or you're not.
Yeah, and he was definitely not. All right, Darria, did you do your? No, you didn't.
I have not done my question yet.
Okay,
No.
I didn't think so.
So, Hue Cards. Really, really great podcast, by the way. How did you get that started with GJC Game Studios and our friend Shmup Junkie?
House of Hue Cards. Me and Saru Maru talked about that like a year ago. It was just an idea that I had because me and him did a collaboration a while back on PC Engine Hidden Gems, I think it was. And we've both followed each other's channels for a long time and commented on each other's videos for a long time. So we kind of like low-key knew each other already. But I don't remember exactly how it popped into my head, but I just realized like there's no podcast. Like this is one of the only things there isn't a podcast about yet on the planet. Like and there's probably a good reason for that because it's incredibly niche and there's zero demand for it. But why not just, if anyone's going to do it, it should be me and Sarumaru at this point, right? I mean, if it were 10 years ago or something, maybe, Spider 1A or somebody could have done it. But I don't think he's really, involved in that anymore, at least not, in the content creation space. So, yeah, me and him talked about it. And then we kind of like put a pin in it and just didn't really pursue it. Because it's one of those things where like, you talk to someone and you're like, yeah, we should do it. Yeah, that sounds good. And then nobody does it. So that's kind of what that was for a while. And for whatever reason, I just got a little fire under me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do like 4 or 5 or 6 of these, see what I think. Maybe they bomb. They probably will. But let's just do it and just have fun with it. And, maybe it resonates with some people and we can, have some fun with it. And we only got 2 episodes out right now. I got the 3rd one recorded, not edited yet. I'll get that out probably by the end of the month, if not the beginning of next month. And yeah, we're having fun with it. Me and Sarumaru are going to be more or less like the regulars, and we're kind of rotating out the 3rd chair. We discovered on that first episode, 4 people is fun, but it's a little hard to manage. 3 is the magic number, we think. So we're going to keep doing 6? That. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I don't envy you, like trying to keep track of everybody's schedules and I couldn't do that.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I guess you guys have like a set time, so maybe like I should do that. But in any case,
we also did like 1 million episodes from 2002 to 2012. So like I think that helps because we didn't always have 6 people. It just kind of happened where Logan and Darria are actually doing a documentary on the show, and they ended up interviewing Jack, Maul, and myself about the show. And then while kind of doing that, I was like, I kind of miss doing that. That'd be really fun to do that again. And then like randomly Jack and I decided to hang out for the first time in like 10 years. And so I was like, hey, let's do this thing again. And he was excited about it. And then Maul and I think had talked even before, around that time too. Like and it was and he was excited to too. So so then I was like,
pieces, you just had to put them together.
Yeah, they just did. And then Logan and Darria, you can't have one without the other. So it just became 6.
Yeah. Well, it works. It works. This show's perfect. I like the way, this show goes. It's fun to listen to.
Good.
Nice.
Glad that you like it.
Yeah. And so in terms of House of Hue cards, I can't really tell you. Like, there wasn't like a moment that I remember where it's like, oh, this is the beginning of it. I mean, it's still such a new thing. We're still really probably in the origin of it, I guess you could say. But we're having fun with it. And, first couple episodes are up. I did 0 advertising for them. I didn't say anything. I didn't warn anybody. I just put them up. And, they both got, about 1,300 views or so. And
nice.
So that's okay for what it is. It's a small channel and it's an incredibly niche topic that I didn't prepare people for whatsoever. So I don't really know what to expect, but it's, people that have watched it have enjoyed it. So we're going to definitely do more.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I'm glad you like it.
One day it just kind of showed up on my feed.
Yeah.
And it was
it's kind of, cool. I just kind of wanted to throw it out there and just see what happens, you know? So
cool.
Yep.
We'll definitely do more.
Awesome. All right, this is my favorite question. So, all right. So you've got the time cleared on your schedule. There's no issue with time whatsoever. And it's kind of to clarify the question, you would experience it as if you were that age, like with the same magic and everything. But what is the one game you'd like to experience again for the first time?
So I would go back to being like 10 or whatever.
Yeah, or at least feeling like having the same feels.
The feels, I would like to experience the feels of the original Metal Gear Solid again. Like that was so revolutionary. Either that or the original Tenchu Stealth Assassins. That was revolutionary in its own way and kind of traumatizing. But that was like the first time you go up behind somebody and, give them one of these, It's like, oh my god! Like I feel like I'm like watching a snuff film or something. Like I'm changed after this. Like I'm not in a good way either. But it was such a fun game. So I don't know. I lean towards actually saying Tenchu now that I mention it, because that was so like once I got really good at it, like that's such a cool game. And the Tenchu 2 was really good as well. It's a prequel. They're younger, and 3 I like. You know, I kind of fell off after that, but the Tenchu series comes to mind for sure, and Metal Gear Solid, just because it was so like Metal Gear Solid was just so polished. I never played a game that was so polished and was so sure of itself and like being, you know, a video game version of a 90s action movie, you know, like Speed or The Rock or one of those types of movies, you know. And I would love to experience that again. If I could repeat that, that would definitely be fun, because that, I think my first time actually playing it was one of those, it was a demo from like a PlayStation magazine or something. It was one of those, and you could just do the loading dock area and then it would end. Yeah, and I probably did that 30 times, you know, before I actually got my hands on the whole game. So that would be fun to experience again. Yeah, a lot of those PS1 games, like the original Silent Hill, like there was nothing like that opening. That opening section, where you know the camera's over top of him and it kind of cranes down and it starts to look like a horror movie, and then everything turns dark, and you know I'm talking about that just horrible intro, you know, in a good way.
Yeah,
and then waking up in that diner and there's like a pterodactyl just busts in. It was just wild.
As it happens,
no one, as it does, you know, in diners. And so yeah, those 3 come to mind for sure. Those are the big ones.
That's awesome.
I like that you clarify, Break, like the at the time period or as a child, you know, to experience again, because Tenchu is one that you watch now, and as an adult, you're like, ooh, these white guys doing Japanese accents for the dub is definitely a choice.
Is that what that was? That makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty harsh, but I do love that game. I played the tutorial section of that game like 1,000 times, because it was just the funnest, like just little bite-sized sneaking around.
They should have just left the Japanese voiceover alone and just subtitled it, because it was that would have made it, because it was a very authentic feeling game anyway, right? So they should have just left it alone. But anyway, great games.
I'll tell you, like I'm like this close to picking up the new Assassin's Creed just because it just looks so damn much like Tenchu. I'm just like, man, I bet it feels
the female character
somewhat like that.
She definitely gives me Ayame vibes for sure. Yeah, she's like more stealth focused too, right?
Yeah, she is. And Yasuke is like a big old tank.
Yeah, I would definitely play it with the stealth character for sure. I agree with you. There are definitely some Tenchu vibes in there.
Yeah,
cool. All right, Jack.
Yeah. So you know, as we've been talking about things, you know, obviously you kind of were the odd duck when you were growing up because you had a TurboGrafx 16, but over in Japan, it was a huge system that was pretty successful for the most part. You know, what do you think ultimately led to the TurboGrafx not really catching on in North America like it did in Japan? Like, do you think the games were too eclectic? Did they not get the arcade ports they needed to, or did they have too many arcade ports? What do you think made the difference there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of little, it's kind of a death by 1,000 cuts, I guess you could say, because there's a lot of little things, like the pack-in game being Keith Courage was not a good choice. You know, Sega had Sonic, Nintendo had Mario, and you're trying to get people excited about this little ding-dong guy with a little sword that looks like a toothpick, and it's like, this is not an impressive game. I like the game, but as a pack-in, it doesn't handle all the pressure of being a pack-in game well. Yeah. So it should have been Legendary Axe or Bonk or something, you know, or R-Type or something like that. But in any case, you know, that was a big error. And, you know, even Sega like started out with Altered Beast, which I would argue was also a bad choice for a pack-in. But they changed it to Sonic when they knew Sonic was a better choice. Like Turbo, you know, NEC could have changed their mind. They just never did. So that was a big error, in my opinion. I think the marketing, again, like we touched on it earlier, but I think the vibe they were trying to establish, the marketing, it was just like Sega, but not as good, kind of like what it ended up feeling like. And they should have leaned into we have the unique, weird arcade ports that you're not going to get anywhere else. We have these weird Taito games that no one's ever heard of. We have this and that and this and JJ and Jeff and, you know, and you're just not going to get the stuff on the Nintendo. You're not going to get it on the Genesis. You know, they're going to pander to you. We're just going to be weird. And you can, you know, they should have just leaned into that in some other way. But I think the probably the biggest nail in their coffin was really the timing, because when they came out, when the PC Engine launched, it was 87, I believe. So super impressive in 87, you know, because the direct competitor was the Famicom at that time. If you play even the best looking Famicom game, you put that against like a, you know, an average looking TurboGrafx game, and it's night and day. It feels like a generational leap. And arguably it was. But then, you know, America, I think the Genesis came out in America or in the West in 89. And so the TurboGrafx came out in 89. So that's, you know, 2 years, right, that they lost. Or is 87 or anyway, they lost time. And when they launched in America with the TurboGrafx, like, yeah, it looked the part. They redesigned the shell and they made it look like a VCR and everything. That's cool. But they didn't, you know, it was going up against the Genesis right off the bat. And the Genesis was just way more impressive in almost every way, except maybe I think it doesn't have as many colors or something. But but the games all had, you know, they had more robust music, they had scrolling layers, and of course they had way more recognizable characters like Sonic, and they had more third-party support. So they had games like Earthworm Jim and all these other like big, just really popular characters. And, you know, by that time, yeah, the PC Engine was cool a couple years ago, but in '89 it was almost immediately outclassed when it hit the ground in the West. And I think that was the biggest mistake. They should have launched in Japan and the West at the same time, and just make it a black PC Engine. You know, they didn't. I don't know why they took so long to just make the console bigger. They should have just put the PC Engine out. If you think black looks cooler, fine. Make it a black PC Engine in the West and a white one in Japan, and just launch them at least around the same time. And it would have been a lot more competitive. It could have gotten a foothold. It could have gotten an audience before the Genesis was able to sneak in, which is what they did in Japan. That's why it was so successful in Japan, because, you know, by the time the, you know, Mega Drive launched, you know, PC Engine had already, you know, gotten some a bit of an audience, and had already stolen a lot of Nintendo people away. So I think that was the main thing. It was the timing. You know, I don't know what they were doing for those 2 years, but they were, you know, they lost primarily because of that, I would argue.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm looking back at some of the ads now, since you mentioned those. Pulled up here, like, and I do remember this particular TurboGrafx one with, like, if anyone Googles this up, with like the screaming face and his head is exploding with little triangles of TurboGrafx games flying out of his head. That was on the back of like every comic book for a long time. I've seen that ad so many times. So that does stand out. It's pretty all right. But then underneath it here, I do find a Toys R Us ad, and that might be the real kind of nail in the coffin for it, because it is, like you say, positioned right next to the Genesis, and it's $10 more for a system that, you know, isn't holding up as well. And then it's got the CD player add-on next to it is $400.
Yeah. That was a mistake. Yeah. And it also,
back
the
then,
existence
too.
of the CD model. I know. And the CD model felt like an additional thing that came afterwards in Japan, because it was. But in the West, it launched almost around the same time. So it felt like this weird thing that people didn't know if they should get both or just one. And why are there only 4 games for it? And, you know, it's like it diluted the focus in the West. I would argue the CD, like, they should have probably just launched the Duo at that point and forgot about everything else. Yeah. But anyway, you know, we're armchair quarterbacking it, so, you know, we have the advantage of hindsight.
You know,
which is why I try not to pound them too hard with it, because, of course, we can pick it apart all day. You know, we got nothing to lose. You know, they're the ones that had to make those decisions in that moment, and, you know, I don't envy them for that.
That's very true. Yeah. Well, that's kind of a good discussion to end here on tonight. This has been a lot of fun. Jack, do you have anything you'd like to say before we head off into the sunset?
Yeah, so I didn't mention it when we were talking about Switch 2 earlier, but shout out to Toby Fox for getting Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 ready to go for a Switch 2 launch. I'm excited for that. It should be a lot of fun.
Nice. And Maul, how about you?
I'll just leave with a little anecdotal story from this last weekend. I was at the Las Vegas Anime Con and had a booth there. It's a great time. So thanks to that con and the people there for hosting it. I will say though, I did have a video game related memory from that where I had a Mario cosplayer come to my booth and request to buy my Skull mascot for my store's logo, and he's not for sale. And I think he dropped the deuce in his costume in the booth in retaliation for me not selling that to him. Don't appreciate it. Tainted the memory. Just embedding that negative con goer like stereotype in all of our minds. Hated it.
Super gross.
Yeah.
He walked by me, then he walked by my partner. We looked at each other and just shook our heads like, no.
Yikes. Well, Logan, I don't know how you're going to follow that one.
I think best memory from this week was attending the premiere of Sod and Stubble, which was the first feature film I've gotten to be involved in. That happened in Wichita on Saturday, and that was pretty cool. About 1,000-person audience, so
That's
good
awesome.
turnout. Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Proud of you, Logan. That's really awesome.
Thanks.
And Darria.
I don't really have much this week, but go check out that little sledding game thing on Steam. It's kind of cute, and if you go to the Instagram for it, you can kind of see a behind the scenes look on how he's like developing it, and I think it's just really cool and pretty fun. So
I love that.
if you're looking for something to watch, go enjoy that.
He needs to
Voice of
release a
reason right
plushie
there.
of that character, just like
Yeah.
a little.
Gotta
I would pay
squeeze it.
$15 for that or something,
Gotta squeeze it. Very
Yep.
Yeah.
And Johnny, anything you'd like to say before you head off into the sunset?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys for bringing me on. This has been fun. This is a good show, and I'm happy to contribute to it as much as I can. And obviously, if anybody out there is interested, feel free to check out my channel. And if it's something you're interested in, then subscribe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show this week. Really appreciate it. I'm pretty stoked for this week as well. I'm going to be getting my Xbox back from Krista over at Sound Retro with Project Stellar in it. So I'm excited
Nice.
to check out that mod and play all the Xbox games I already own on it. Going to be a lot of fun. And we'll see you same time next week on the game show.